Welcome to another interview presented by Wrestling Forums. I'm Jackson Bast here with two-time state champ, NHSCA Senior All-American, and recent Life University commit, Will Garrett. How you doing today, Will?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Can't complain, can't complain. So first off, I'm going to ask you, what got you into wrestling?
So the main thing that got me into wrestling was just honestly, I needed something to do like after football season was over. Like to be honest, like I was playing football, I needed something else to do. And then I guess I sort of just fell in love with it like during the off season of football. And then going into high school, I like really fell in love with it and I decided to commit my time to the sport and I quit football and it turned into what is today. So
Did somebody try to get you into the sport? Did Coach Barnes maybe have a play there? Anybody? Or did you just kind of try out?
uh Barnes had a little bit to do with it, but like I'd wrestled like a little bit before that, like in third grade for like maybe a few months and then I quit. But I knew it was a fun sport and I sort of wanted to get back into it just a little bit, but I didn't think it would carry me this far.
And although you started in third and fourth grade, you really kind of got into it around middle school. And I remember one time I was talking with Seth Whitlock, and he was telling me he described the middle school program as a cult. And I don't mean it like a bad way or anything, but you guys are very dedicated. I've seen videos of the middle schoolers. They're doing the Navy drills and all that sorts of jazz. And
Well, the way they got us into it was by playing games. So like they'll do a demo at the middle school and we would play these games and then you're like, oh, that's how like practice is going to be. That's how it's always going to be. So you choose to go in there and wrestle and then for like the first couple weeks, yeah, it's like that. And then after that, it's like nothing how it was at first. But yeah, they sort of lure you in with some games or whatever just to get you in there.
and talking a little bit about your middle school career, I remember you came in there, you ended up placing second. I was there for that tournament. You ended up placing second. You finished behind one of the Reeves brothers. I think it was Logan. Yeah, and I mean that was a pretty good match to overall.
I
For the
mean,
most part.
yeah, it like a funny story about that. Me and him were like, I guess you could say like a middle school rivalry. It was weird, but I think me and him wrestled like five, six, maybe seven times, and I lost every time. So it's kind of crazy how things are working out now.
And as we move on to your freshman campaign, I remember I was talking to Gay Pix and Fa's dad about the time that you had to wrestle off Seth Gallen, who was a senior, for the starting spot on that sectional lineup because Emmanuel Oliver didn't get to wrestle because he got hurt. And he was telling me about how Gabe picked you because all your teammates had to pick a side, and you picked it because it's who you thought was going to win, and the loser had to do push-ups. And he was telling me about how he thought that because Gabe was on your side, that kind of gave you the little do you want to comment on that?
I mean, I'm sure like a little bit could have like gotten into my head, like, oh, I have this guy on my side. Yeah, I'm gonna win. But to be honest, I'm not sure if I even really noticed anybody on my side. I just know there were a lot more people on his side because like he's a senior. He's been here for 4 years. This is just a freshman. So I don't know. I feel like I was more scared about that than noticing having Gabe on my side, but I guess it doesn't really matter because I still pulled it out.
So, kind of fast forward a little bit, you have to wrestle the sectional tournament, and it's the consolation semifinals, and you've got to wrestle a returning state placer in Alex Mason. And you ended up pulling out the win 9-6, but kind of tell us about that win.
So I had wrestled him earlier in the season. This was, I believe, it was before we were like sure that Manny was gonna be out. So he was like still waiting on his test results back from the doctor and stuff. So we wrestled Hoover in a duel. I believe it was like the state duel semifinals or something like that. And then I wrestled him and it was like 11-2. Like he beat the dog crap out of me. And yeah, so after that, Manny ended up coming back for the state dual finals and he got better. And then that week of going to sectionals is when everything happened with him, like, which stuff I'm not going to get into because that's like his stuff to tell.
Yeah.
But everything happened and Weltson's just like, hey, get ready. And then like within like the next 2 days, I had my wrestle off, won, went to sectionals, and then I wrestled first day of sectionals pretty good. And then that second day when I had to like actually wrestle him, well, that night after the first day, Gabe sort of sat me down and like talked to me about it. He was like, hey, you know, you're going to run into this guy tomorrow. Like, we know you can beat him and we're going to get a game plan set. So we had this game plan set the entire time and it worked. And thank you, Gabe, for getting me to qualify for sectionals my freshman year. Because if he wouldn't have told me that a sweep single was there, then I definitely would not have won that match.
And we fast forward to your sophomore year, the 1, the 2, the 3. That's you, Zeke Spotherman, Jack Lamey. I'd see a couple of those matches. Jack Lamey kind of had your number. Couldn't really get past him because he would always end up losing to Zeke the week before. So you caught him in the semis. And you're wrestling the 3rd, 4th place match and you fall to Jacob Johnson, who hadn't beat you all season. You get upset. Kind of how did that match kind of fuel your offseason?
Yeah, it did for sure. So like, I think the main reason I wrestled so bad in that match is pretty much just like, I was overconfident in myself because I'm like, yeah, I'm on a hot streak against this one guy. And like, I felt like I wasn't worried enough about that match. Like my head wasn't all there. So that match pretty much just really taught me like for these next 2 past years, like you need to keep your foot on the gas pedal the entire time. Like, cause anybody, like being honest, anybody can beat you on any given day. And that was a tough thing to learn in a moment like that. But I guess I learned the hard way, but at least I learned it.
And that was a great lesson to learn then because your junior and senior years, you ended up winning state titles. And you didn't. It's not like you didn't have your fair share of battles. Of course, this year at the state dual finals, you fell to Harris Mitchell. And a lot of people were like, maybe Harris Mitchell's the guy at this weight. And you kind of showed up at state and showed up and showed out and won that title.
Yeah, I mean, well, I would say, well, there's really no excuse to this, but like, because I don't like to make excuses because whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say I was prepared for that match at all. You know, like I'm not making excuses or anything because like he beat me like that. Yeah. Like that's a fair win. Like hats off to him. Like he beat me like straight up, like right there on that stage in front of everybody. But yeah, I was just coming off an injury. So I had not wrestled live or even been able to do like a hard drill bout in 2 weeks. So going into that match, I would like that week going into that match, I got out of a boot on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't have much training. Stamina was gone. But, you know, it is what it is. Just fueled the fire more. And I came back healthier at state. I mean, still not quite 100%, but came back at state. And just a few minor adjustments that I had to make just for that match. So I came back.
And then a little bit past state, you wrestled at NHSCA's, where you finished 7th as a senior All-American. But the match everybody, a little bit curious about your thoughts on was when you took on 5-time Alabama state champ and household name in the sport in the state, Jaden New. So what were kind of your thoughts on that match?
Before the match, it was like, this is either like, this is it. Like, this is my chance. Like, I can either make it or break it right here. So, I talked to Manny because Shad was over coaching the semifinals, I believe. So he wasn't around at the time. So I went over and I talked to Manny and I was like, hey, do you have any advice for like the blood round? Like, I've never been in this important of a blood round match, because every single blood round I've wrestled in at a national tournament, I've lost. And I'm like, okay, do you have any advice for this blood round match? Well, Manny gives me like one of the best pieces of advice, but at the same time, I was like, are you serious? But Manny was just like, dude, it's just another match. I'm like, but like, this is like a really important match. He's like, it's just another match. So he kept putting that into my head and he's like, just calm down, calm down. I'm like, all right. I calmed down and I went out there and wrestled. I wrestled really like loose that match. Like, I wasn't very nervous. Like, when I walked out there, I thought I was going to be like nervous, intense, but I didn't. I walked out and I felt loose and calm and felt good. But yeah, wasn't
And
much else.
how did it feel to be a senior All-American after falling short a few times before?
Well, I mean, it felt like a big, huge weight lifted off of my shoulders, to be quite honest. But it's just the the person I had to beat. In my mind, I know, like, I didn't care who I had to beat to do it, but I just hate that it was, of course, me and Jaden in that like moment. I hated that it had to be him, because going into that tournament, me and him both were like, hey, me and you in the finals, me and you in the finals. So that was clearly not the match that I wanted to wrestle him in. And I have a lot of respect for Jaden and everything, but the cookies crumble and sometimes they don't crumble your way. So, I mean, it really sucked, but I had to pull one out. It took 5 years and I finally did it. So, had to happen sometime.
And then, of course, news hit Monday night that you are committing to Life University. So, why Life?
Well, I went on 2 visits to Life. First time was just like a sort of like, all right, I'll try it out. Let's see what it's all about. And then the second time they asked me, they're like, yeah, come on, we're gonna make this one official and you're gonna stay for a couple nights. So I went out and I stayed, and I got to stay in the dorm rooms with a lot of the wrestlers, and I got to experience everything. And just the vibe there was really, it sat really good with me. And the not like just the campus, but the guys there, Coach O, it all just felt like home. So I just wanted to stay somewhat close to home. I mean, it's not that far from my home here in Alabama, but it just felt right. And their chiropractic program is out of this world. Like, that's what I want to do whenever I grow up. Like, that's what I want to pursue as my career. So I couldn't pass up that opportunity that they gave me.
And as I saw your commitment post, you put in the top, home is where the heart is. So why does Life University feel like home?
That's a great question, but I think it mainly narrows down to like the moment when you step on that campus and you can just feel like, yes, I can see myself here. Like, whenever I went out there, I wanted to view myself there without wrestling, because a lot of these guys are going to college like, yeah, I'm just wrestling. Like, that's all I'm doing. But I wanted to look at it from a different perspective. And when I looked at it without seeing myself there wrestling, I still felt the exact same way. So felt pretty good to finally be able to commit. And everybody's been like so antsy about it. So people are getting really impatient for a while, but it finally happened.
Yeah, I knew I was one of those people too. I saw you tour UTC, you toured Presbyterian, you toured Lindsey Wilson, you toured Life, and I think we're all happy to hear that you're going to be wrestling a little closer to home.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, Will, those are all the questions I have for you today. Before I let you go, is there anything you want to say to my viewers?
Go Eagles.
Go Eagles. Well, Will, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay cool up in wrestling.